Okay, so the first thing that you're going to do is come into your project, go into the data models folder, and we're going to add a couple of new scripts here. First one is fixture, and just feel free to copy this class. But basically this is going to hold our teams, away team and our home team, and the scores, and then we've got a constructor which just it takes in the home team and the away team, and it creates a brand new match that's at 0-0 to begin with. Make sure you add system serializable to this as well. Then come back into Unity, and we're going to add a match week as well. So this is basically going to allow us to skip through and view all the fixtures week by week. So a match week contains a list of fixtures which we just looked at, and it's got a number match week associated with it, so we can skip through them. And then we can add fixtures into the match week fixtures here just by calling this. And then if you create another folder called scriptable objects, we've got teams. So right now all we've got is the team name, that's all we need at the moment. And then add this create asset menu. This means we'll be able to create a scriptable object full of data through the Unity user interface. Let me show you that just now. So if you don't have it already in your assets folder, add another folder called data, and then inside of that we'll add teams, and this is where we're going to hold all of our team data. So if we just have a look here, we can see we can set the team name up here. In order to add one of these, if you added the script for teams exactly how I showed you, you just right click in the project, create, sports league, and then team. And then I've just added some wee crappy ones here with different names. The next thing you're going to want to add is in your controllers. So we've already got a UI manager, we now want a team manager. So let's take a wee look at this. This is going to hold all of the team data. So we've got our team scriptable objects, and then we've got an instantiated teams. Basically what this means is we will drag and drop all of those scriptable objects that we created here. We'll drag them onto this value here, team scriptable objects. And from there at the start of every game, we'll look through and we'll instantiate them. And basically what that means is we create an instance of the scriptable object so that we're not directly accessing this data, because it means, let's say, if your particular game, Miami, goes bankrupt and changes their name to Miami 2, if you change the team name to Miami 2, it's going to change it in the actual game files. And that means every other game going forward, Miami will in fact be Miami 2, but we want to just isolate it to this one game in particular. So by creating an instance of it here, we isolate that change to this game only, to this instance of the game. We don't want to be editing actual game data that's hard in the files. And then from there, we'll have another class called Fixture Generator, and we can generate the fixture list. And this is the code that I've got for generating the fixture list. So this is modelled after most league structures, so like the Premiership, where every team plays each other twice, once home and once away. And we can see here, we first check that there's at least 2 teams. If there's not, we can't do it. And we check again if there's an even number of teams. Right now, you need to make sure that you've got an even amount of teams in your league. If you don't, then this won't work. You'll throw this exception. That might be something that I create a workaround for in the future, but for right now, just keep your leagues with an even number of teams. So we check how many weeks that we need, and we look through each of those weeks, and then we grab the index of the home team, the index of the away team. We make sure that they aren't the same team, because we don't want teams playing with themselves. Ooh. And then we add a new fixture here, and that is in our match week class. We add a new fixture. And just to show you what's going on, I've added a breakpoint here. I've run the code, which is being called in start of the team manager. So I'm calling this here in start. And if I hover over match weeks, I've got 10. I've got 6 teams, which I have dragged and dropped into my team scriptable objects. So that is getting 6 instantiated teams passed through. So there should be 10 match weeks, which there is, because each team will play 10 games. And then in here there should be 3 fixtures, which there is. There is 3 fixtures per match week. So that is all working as expected. So you'll just want to copy this fixture generator code here. But you might notice that we're doing nothing with it, because we return those generated fixtures from the fixture generator as a list of match weeks, but we're not doing anything. So next, what we need to do is add this fixture list into the game. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to take this bit of code and I'm going to move it into a new script. So come back into your project here and into your controllers folder and add a new manager called Fixtures Manager, and this is going to hold all the fixture data. So create that new script here, open it in Visual Studio, and take this line here. And I don't need the comment. I am going to delete these. So delete that. And in your Fixtures Manager, add a public list of match week and make that a new empty list. And then in start, you want to assign match weeks to fixture generator.generate fixtures. And then we don't have teams to pass in. So we're going to need to reference the teams somewhere. And the simplest way to do this without too many wires crossing over each other is by changing this script up a wee bit. So if you add a singleton here and implement the singleton in private void awake, we can just access the team manager really easily here, okay? And then add a new method called getAllTeams. So what this is going to do is we will call this to get the teams because it returns a list of teams. It will first check if the instantiated teams count is less than 1, meaning there's nothing in it. And if there isn't anything in it, it's the first time that we're actually accessing it, which means we need to create it. So we just do the same thing again. We loop through and we create the instances, and then we return those instantiated teams. Now, if this is the second or third time that we're trying to access the teams, it won't do any of this because we've already done it once. So it's a nice wee clean way just to ensure that we never access this too early and that we're not recreating it all the time. So then if we come back into the Fixtures Manager, we can now just assign match weeks to fixture generator.generate fixtures and pass in the team manager instance getAllTeams that we just implemented. So just add your new Fixtures Manager onto your controller, run the game, and then if you've followed everything so far, because these are serializable, you should be able to access the match weeks in the actual inspector, so you can actually view all the fixtures that are going on here, which is pretty cool. But obviously we want it in this results pane here, so let's work on that next. And for this, what we're going to need to be working on is your home page UI, and we haven't really touched this yet, so we're going to be shifting some things about here. So let me do that and show you what's going on. So I've since updated this home page UI. So the first thing you might see is these properties here. So serialized field means basically that this is going to show up in the inspector while it's private, because usually it has to be publicly accessible for it to show in the inspector. But if we use serialized field, we can still assign the value in the inspector, which is what we want to do here, while we can't access it from another script. So fixture container is basically going to be this results container here, and result prefab is going to be the prefab with the score and the team names that we created in the last episode. So we want to override here our onShow method, which is part of UI page. This gets called anytime we show the home page UI. We want to clear the fixtures. So when we do that, we call this. It goes through the fixture container and it destroys all of the child game objects that are in there. So basically it clears all the fixtures that have been listed previously. It then recreates it by instantiating the results prefab as a child of the fixture container transform. Then once we've got that, we referenced it as OBJ. We access the fixture UI in OBJ, which is brand new and I will show you. And we set the fixture text and we pass in F, which if I didn't say already, here we are looping through the Fixtures Manager instance match weeks, and I've hard set it to 0 just to test it just now, but the fixtures. And in order to do that, you'll need to, again, like we've done a million times already, implement the singleton pattern in your Fixtures Manager, in case you've not done that yet. So we did have a new script there. I've added it into the UI folder, and it's called Fixture UI. And this is it. We've got 4 TextMesh Pro UGUIs. So this is basically so we can access the text. One's going to hold the home team name, home team score, away team name, and away team score. We've got the method here which sets the fixture text. So we just pass in a fixture because that holds all of this data, and then we assign the text values. And again, we are calling this method from this loop, which gets called every time that we show the home page. So if we go back to Unity, if you haven't already, add fixture managers onto your controller, and in your home page, make sure that your home page UI is on your home page object. Then you'll have these two values you'll need to assign. Set the fixture container to the results container. I know the names are a wee bit interchangeable and annoying, but I hope fixture and results at this point is interchangeable to you and you know what I'm talking about. And then for your results prefab, you want to click this wee lock in the inspector to make sure that doesn't go anywhere when you click off it. Go into your prefabs folder, find result, and just drag that in to the results prefab. Now I have set on show to trigger every time. That was at the end of the last episode. That is done in the UI manager. We call show home page and start. So basically we start off with the home page active. I'm going to press play now and you should see our first lot of fixtures being shown and generated. And they're all set to nil. We haven't simulated these yet. We'll need to set a Boolean value which basically tells us if that match week has been simulated yet or not, because this should say versus as opposed to nil, because these haven't yet happened. So let's have a look at that. And just because these are really starting to irritate me, I'm going to get rid of these little placeholders here. So I'm going to just hide these pages now. No, I've had the wrong one. Hide these three. Come in here and I'm just going to click tons of times because I'm lazy. I'm going to get rid of these league standings and do I need to add anything here? I don't think I do. So I'm going to get rid of that league standing as well, just because they ones just sitting there were starting to just irritate me. So cool, all nice and blank. So like I said, I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to add public bool has been played. By default, that is going to be false. And then if you come into fixture, we want to then add a reference to the match week in the fixture. So we already know what fixtures are in a match week, but we want the fixture to know what match week it's in. So a wee circular reference here. Add match week into your fixture constructor, and then just assign the value down the bottom. And for this, we're going to need to come back into the fixture generator and just update this method here. So when you're adding a new fixture, you're adding the team and the home team and the away team, then you've got to add the match week here as well. Then your fixture UI will just look like this. Before we just had this to assign the scores, but you only want to do that if the match week has been played. By default, that's going to be false because when we start the game, no matches have been played. So just assign the text value to string.empty instead, and then the score will be empty as opposed to saying 0, which is what every game starts with. So if you come back in, play the game again, and there you go. We can see we don't see the scores now. Next thing we want to do is format that league table so that it works. So let's add a new class here. You can do that, just right click in Visual Studio on controllers, add new item, and this is going to be called league manager.cs. CS is just C#, it's just the format of the file. This is going to control everything to do with our league system. But before we do anything with that class, let's come back in here and add in these two new properties that are just like the ones we had before, but these are for the league standing container and then our missed out prefab here. League standing prefab, which we created in the last episode. And same shit again, just come back in, click home page, find your league container and assign it to that transform. Find your league standing prefab, which is this one, and drag it in. And let's come back, get to adding in this league manager here. So we just, like usual, added the singleton pattern here, and we've added a league table entry, which is a brand new class which is going to go in your data models. So you can just right click and add a new item in your data models and call it league table entry. If you come into that, you can just copy this code, which it will have your team, it will have their points, their goals for, their goals against, and the goal difference. and then a constructor here which just takes the team, sets their points and everything else to 0 to begin with. Let's go back to League Manager, and we're going to have this in here which is going to instantiate our league standings. So it's going to clear the standings, which is our list, and then it's just going to add in all the teams that we've got, and we're calling this Team Manager Get All Teams again, which, if we peek definition, is this method here, which is responsible for either returning, or if it's the first time that we're getting all the teams, creating an instance of all the teams. Then get another wee bit of code that we'll add in, okay, and this is for updating the standings. So this takes in a fixture, so we're just going to use this by looking through. We will be going through this fixture and grabbing all the data from it, determining who won or who lost, or if it was a draw, calculating the goals for and against, and then at the end of this we will update the standings, which we do in this method here, which starts sorting out the standings, which is a list of league table entries, which basically contains the team and their stats. So every time that we update with a fixture, we're going to then start sorting through the standings again. And then one wee final bit of code that we'll add in is this public method for getting the standings. And again, it's the same deal here. We check if the standings, which is basically the league table, let's just call it, has got fewer than 1. So if it's empty, then we call initialize, which is this, which loops through all the teams and adds the standings. And then we just return the standings. Then anytime we want to update the table, all that we're going to do is we're going to call update standings, and we'll call that after every match week is simulated. But that will come further down the line. We're just focusing on the UI at this point. So again, we're going to need another script here. If you go into your UI folder this time and create a script called League Standing UI, and this is going to be attached to the League Standing prefab, and it's basically going to do the same job as this. So tell you what, why don't we just copy that and we'll put it here. But the only difference here is that we need we just remove this and we will add a standing, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. We need team name, and we need points, because that is all that we're going to have. So instead of this being set fixture text, it's going to be set league standing text, and this fixture is going to be a league table entry. And let's rename this to entry. So we can get rid of all this shite, and we don't have a number for standing at the moment, so we'll need to go back and get that. Team name is simple, it's going to be entry.team.team name. Put a wee semicolon there, and points is going to be entry.points to string. So we just need to grab this standing. We could either just pass it in here as an int, or we could assign it to the league table entry. But I tell you what, just for the sake of it, we'll just pass it in as an int. And I don't always like doing this, but for now, oops, oh shit. For now, it's just the best way to do this and keep it clean, and we might tidy that up after. So come back to your homepage UI, let's set this up. So that's going to be 1, because first place is going to be 1. And I know the programmer in you is saying it's going to be 0. I mean, technically it is 0, but it's going to be 1. So let's pass in L for league whatever, and pass in the standing, which is league standing index, and then after this one, just increment it like that. Now if we go back into Unity, we'll need to update this league standing prefab here in the prefabs. So just add in your league standing UI and go into the prefab by double clicking it, just so you get access to all this shite. position will be standing. I know we are using terms so loosely and interchanging them all here, but I hope you get the idea. So points is points, league team name is team name, standing is position, just to be annoying. So now, if you go to the home page, just make sure that these two are set, your two league standing, your container and your prefab. And then if you play it, you'll see your league table has been formatted nicely. So we're getting there. It's a wee bit annoying that this keeps sorting to the centre, but the general idea is there. There's one more area we need to update though, and that is the fixture list. And we've already done most of the hard work, so what you want to do here is you've got a button. If you downloaded my starter template project for GitHub, you'll have an all fixtures button here, which, I mean, doesn't look like a button. I've hidden the button, I've hidden the opacity a wee bit, but let's just brighten that up a wee bit, make it, I don't know, make it yellow or something. And it's a button so we can put an on-click listener in. So I've already done it, but I'll do it again to show you. You just come to on-click, you press the B+, and then you want to drag in your object here. So your controller is the one that we want to access, because when we click this, we want to shift using the UI manager, which controls the changing of the UI pages, so to speak. We want to show the fixture list. So just save that, and we'll hover over and we'll click, and we do go to the all fixtures, what do you call it, page and result, fixtures and results page. But we've not set this up yet, so let's go ahead, we'll set it up dead quick, and it'll be dead easy, so that we can skip through each week and see what's going on, okay? I'm going to close all this because I've got so much shit open, so I'm going to right click one of these scripts and click close all tabs, because there's so much shit opened, and the ones I want the now are, I'm going to want fixture UI, because I'll be using that. I'm going to just pin it so that it stays on the left hand side. I want an UI, I want fixture list, which has got nothing in it yet. And what else do I want? I want match week. Maybe let's keep it open. Right, so this is going to be all the code that you need for your fixture list UI. So implement the singleton pattern through your instance, add a private int week focus, which is going to be the week that we are looking at now in terms of the fixtures that are displayed. Just like before, we need a fixture container to hold all the fixture user interface. And then we also need to assign the results prefab again. And you might get a red flag here looking at this, because we've now assigned this twice, and that is why in a lot of games I set up a prefab manager, so that is likely something that we will do for this project. We want a public void change week focus with an int amount parameter, and if you have a look at this, it takes some time to read it, copy it down. It basically checks that essentially we'll have a left arrow and a right arrow in the interface. The left arrow will move us back a week, and the right arrow will move us forward a week, so that we can look at all the fixtures across all the weeks. The left arrow to go back will be -1 for the amount, and the forward arrow will be +1. So this just clamps us here to make sure we don't exceed the match weeks, because if we do, we'll run into an error, and it makes sure we don't go into the negatives, because again, we will run into an error. We set up the fixtures panel here because we want to update the user interface, and we also set up the fixtures panel on show, which again, this is a UI page method which we're overriding just to set up the panel. So this is set up fixtures panel, and again, it's very similar to what we did in the home page. We clear all the fixtures that are already there, and then we just loop through all of them. One thing that we changed was this was a hard-coded 0. We want this to be the week focus, which is 0 to start with, but we update it as we click those arrows, and then we just render the results prefab in the fixtures container, and we use our fixture UI again to update the fixture text. So going back in now, fixture list page, assign your fixture container, which is this results container, assign the result prefab, and then if you go in and press play, come down the bottom and click view all fixtures, we'll see this is week 1, and then we can press these arrows to skip through the fixtures. And one thing that I didn't point out, which I'll point out now, is assigning these arrow buttons. So we've got prev-week button, next week button. So prev-week button, we just add an on-click listener, drag in the fixture list page, and then access fixture list UI, change week focus, and assign that value in here. This is the parameter, set it to -1, and do the exact same thing for next week button, but make it 1 instead of -1. Now you might have spotted a problem with that last bit of the tutorial, and I applaud you if you do, because I've been battering my head off my keyboard for ages now trying to resolve this, because I did notice that our round robin fixture generator was generating 4 of the same fixture. I had Cardiff playing Stockholm about 4 times, which isn't what we're after, so I have now come up with a nice wee fix here, which if we see next week when I click is the second half of the season, and Stockholm are at home to Cardiff, and that fixture doesn't happen again. But if I go back to the very first week, Cardiff is at home to Stockholm. So it works. So this is the new and improved method for generating the league fixtures. So we get the total number of the teams, create a new list of match weeks, which we're going to return. The total rounds is the number of teams -1. So if you get 6 teams, it's 5. It basically means that you're going to double that to get your total number of match weeks. So matches per round is how many teams, how many games are being played each week. So if you've got 6 teams, which I do here for testing, you divide it by 2, it'll be 3, because each team plays once a week. 6 teams means 3 games a week. So when we look through each of the rounds, total rounds multiplied by 2 is the total amount of rounds. So total rounds isn't actually right, but I digress here. So that's 5. Just take that I'm using 6 teams. Total rounds is 5, because it's number of teams -1. Multiplied by 2 is 10, so we'll go through this 10 times here. We'll add a new match week, and we will look through the matches, because we're going through matches per round, and we are getting the home index here, we're getting the away index, and then we're using that to access the team's list and pull the team out. And then basically here, we reverse the fixture. So this was the fix that I added. When you get the home team and the away team, you first check if the current round is greater than the total rounds. So basically total rounds is poorly named, but this is the halfway point of the season. So this is 5, but I'm going to have 10 weeks total. So this should be like halfway point, or half season index or something. So we check if we're past the halfway point, and if we are, then we grab the away index for the home team, so we're reversing it. We do the same for away, we grab the home index. But if we're not, which is what this means, this is used for the first half of the season, so the home index is the home. So it's just a wee neater way of reversing the fixture list. Then we've got the teams, we just add the fixture, we assign the week, the match week. We add that match week into a list of match weeks, and then at the end we return it. So take a wee minute to note down that code. So that's us for this one. What we're going to be doing in the next episode is we're going to be adding in the ability to simulate games. So to start with, this is just going to be a random number generation. There's going to be no logic in there, but as a result of that, when we go through the fixtures, you start to see scores appearing as we simulate, and then also you start to see the league table picking up some points, reorganising itself, and so on and so on. So cheers for watching. If you liked it, please leave a wee like on the video. It really helps feed my ego here. And subscribe to get the rest of the episodes as soon as they are available. So cheers, folks. If you found this video useful, please help out my channel by liking and subscribing if you want to see more Unity or game dev related videos. If there's a particular video or tutorial you would enjoy or learn much from, then drop a comment on this video and I'll do my best to respond. Cheers!